He'll be reacting to completely wrong history facts that you may still believe in. Okay. So, like, does that mean, is that like, by chat history, but is that mean, for example, because some of us believe in certain stuff, like, I'm trying to remember that time, what is that shit called? Oh, like, if you crack your muscles and stuff, it causes, like, like arthritis or something. I remember that. Or if you, my mom used to always say, if you roll your eyes, they're gonna get stuck like that. But I don't think this is what that's talking about. I think this is talking about like theories and shit from history. Let's get into it though.
History facts that are wrong. This is probably one of the first things we all learned about in school when discussing ancient Egypt. Tens of thousands of slaves enduring endless hours of intense, forced physical labor while barely being fed or provided with adequate water. Drop a sack of sand, chisel something at the wrong angle, devout masochist, you're getting a whipping. Well, it's all poppycock. While there were slaves, they were mainly prisoners of war or household servants who tended to their landlords, but they weren't really part of the main labor force. Instead, laborers in ancient Egypt were conscripted using the corvée duty system, a way to pay off taxes through manual labor. According to the book The Pyramid Builders of Ancient Egypt, which discusses the pyramid builders of ancient Egypt, farmers were usually pulled from their laborious crop dusting for construction work whenever the Nile went all floody during the summer months. While the snobby rich upper class folk avoided manual labor by just paying off their tax burden, them smelly poors were tasked with construction of temples, tombs, and pyramids. Laborers who worked on the pyramids, as well as other large structures way back in the ancient times, were actually well provided for. This makes sense, as having a weakened labor force due to neglect or malnourishment doesn't really pay great dividends. Can't exactly move giant rocks when you're completely emaciated. Small villages have been discovered built specifically for housing laborers. These sites also contain various animal bones and plentiful bread jars showing a high quality diet. But of course, the system wasn't perfect. Thanks to some classic upper class corruption, sometimes things didn't always go right for these laborers, but they had the power to stand their ground. Dating all the way back to 1170 BC, written evidence has been found of an artisan's strike while constructing a tomb for then pharaoh Ramesses III. The artisans complained about a lack of
they weren't treated as badly as we thought they were treated. Well, as people say they were. Is what I'm getting from it. I really don't know. But the thing is like, still, back in the day, if you have to move a big ass rock by yourself, no, not by yourself, with other people though, and it's hot, like that sucks by itself.
Rations and outright refused to continue their work, dropping their chisels and their hammers to march right up to the ruling class's temples to make their demands. What do we want? Food! When do we want it? Food! After chit-chatting with the local vizier, the workers were able to secure the rations and continued their work. Now don't get me wrong, the labor that these guys endured was backbreaking, extremely strenuous, and downright exhausting.
That's literally what I just said.
They weren't outright enslaved or mistreated, as historians previously thought. We've all heard the legends about King Tut's tomb, right? If you disturb an ancient king's burial grounds, you'll be cursed, doomed to die a horrible death. Well, it's not so. You'd probably cough a bit from inhaling millennia-old mummy powder, but that's about it. Now, there has been evidence of some ancient tombs inscribed with curse-like carvings. For example, ancient warlord and Egyptian noble Ankh-Tifi wrote that, quote, "Any ruler who shall do evil or wickedness to his coffin, may the gods not accept any goods he offers, and may his heir never inherit." Similarly, an inscription on the tomb of 10th century BC ruler Kentika Ikeki warns that any impure men who enter this tomb, there will be judgment. An end shall be made for him. I shall seize his neck like a bird, and I shall cast the fear of myself.
Hold on, but what do they mean by impure? What do they mean by impure men? Like, guys that have done that shit before, you know what I mean? But like, I don't think they're talking about like that, right? I don't know.
Into him. Now, in a culture that was super superstitious, anyone coming across warnings like that would be like, "Oh shit! A ghost!" prompting them to 180 right out of the room. When King Tut's tomb was discovered in 1922, no such written reprimands or warnings were ever found. In reality, the rumor of King Tut's curse revolves around one George Edward Stanhope Molyneux Herbert, 5th Earl of Carnarvon, a rich English white dude who funded the whole expedition that led to the discovery of the Sandy sarcophagus. He died a whole 4 months after the opening of the tomb, after which a journalist did what journalists do and printed a whole bunch of sensationalized fake news, attributing Lord Carnarvon's death to an inexplicable curse. To no surprise, the media ran with it, making claims of a written curse being uncovered with the tomb, though this never happened. So how did Lord Carnarvon die? He done got bit by a mosquito. The resulting bump was accidentally slashed while he was shaving.
Are you serious though? Like, some big fake lie came out of a mosquito, bro. Like, that's wild. Like, someone can tell something can happen completely different than what people tell you, and then it's not even what happened. It was literally a mosquito.
Making a pretty nasty cut that later got infected. The old chap died of blood poisoning at the age of 56. Dedicated believers have tried to attribute other deaths to the curse, but they're really grasping for straws. Of the 58 people who were present at the opening of the tomb, only 8 had died within a dozen years of the discovery, and by various means ranging from cancer to murder to natural causes. The majority of the men went to live on full, healthy lives. At least they didn't steal any spooky slabs. That might have been a different story. When you think of Sparta...
Sorry. I'm actually sitting here reading them before they go into it, and I'm sorry, that's just a wild fucking text right there.
Spartans, you probably think about them slippery, shiny hunks of warrior man meat as portrayed on the silver screen. A society of strict and viciously trained bloodthirsty warriors who could decimate any opposing army. But while you're thinking about oiled up, shirtless, muscular men, you might question if this portrayal...
Never mind. I don't know who's thinking about that. I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
Is historically accurate. It's not. In reality, the Greek city-state of Sparta had no professional army. Although growing up with militaristic training, the purpose was not to create warriors, but perfected, hardened, and respectable citizens.
What the They just got their cheeks out, bro.
Who could serve to defend their homeland if need be. That little element of perfection is where some rumors of Spartan eugenics come in. It is believed that ancient Spartans practiced infanticide, the act of killing deformed or undesired babies as a way to strengthen the Spartan society. However, the biggest downfall of this myth is that there's only one historical source that alludes to this barbaric practice, and it's this guy, Roman historian Plutarch. He wrote that Spartan elders would examine newborns for imperfections or weaknesses. Good, bad, good. What the? Hello, Daddy. Ew. If anywhere ever found, they would just yeetus the fetus up the Taygetus mountainside. This ensured that only the best of the best would be able to thrive to crushing adulthood. But this bit of literature is almost certainly a bunch of baloney. While historians can't confirm with 100% certainty, they can confirm with 99.9% certainty that this just flat out never happened. Excavations around the proposed baby hucking sites have failed to present any supporting evidence. There have been a few adult remains discovered, but no teeny tiny toddler tibias were ever among them. If you needed more convincing, Plutarch's writings date some 600 years after the height of Spartan civilization, so it might have just been some silly Spartan slander. That would be like if future archaeologists in the year 4000 unearthed fanfiction from today about how medieval Europeans would just shit their britches to ward off witches. Sure, it's questionable, but you could kind of see that happening, right?
And they'll probably actually believe some shit like that. That's the part. That's the crazy part. They'll probably believe some shit like that. It's kind of wild how much humans believe. You know what I mean? Like, something can sound crazy, but there's stuff that we believe that just sounds wild as fuck.
Despite what you may think, death was not the goal of gladiator battles in the Roman Colosseum. If it was, Rome would have run out of them real quick. Now keep in mind that the Colosseum was active for over 400 years, hosting a plethora of different events ranging from gladiator battles to public criminal executions to full-fledged naval battle reenactments with the entire Colosseum being flooded. Pretty wild, right? Well, gladiator battles were basically the equivalent of today's UFC or boxing matches, just with swords and spears instead of fists. These fights were spectacles of sport, and the gladiators were the athletes.
Could you had some imagine Conor McGregor back in the day fighting in that shit? That shit would be funny. He'd be talking shit the whole time, bro.
famous gladiators, rookie gladiators, and everything in between. While some gladiators were slaves, criminals, or prisoners of war fighting for their chance of freedom, most of the big old brutes fought for fame and fortune, or just the high-octane dopamine rush of being able to legally stab someone in the kidney and getting praised for it.
What the
Roman
fuck?
citizens were hyped to watch two dudes duke it out in a sweaty, sandy, sassy struggle of strength. But things were a lot more exciting than just the vanilla missionary position 9-to-5 white picket fence 1.5 children-ass sword and shield type gladiators.
Bro, just turned into Eminem? Hold up. He started rapping, bro. What the fuck?
Nope. Actually, there were about 30 different types of gladiators ready to clang and bang away at each other. You had your dual-wielding Demochirus, the trident-chucking Retiarius, the silly-looking Caesar, and the alls-out, balls-out Cestus, among other DLC characters.
Okay.
So imagine that you're living your
wow.
boring Roman life, sitting in your boring Roman house, scratching your boring Roman balls when you suddenly catch wind of the gladiator battle of the century. Two andabate pitted against each other. You'd lose your shit. Why would you lose your shit? Because andabate were condemned criminals fighting each other completely blind. Yeah, as a form of punishment, two criminals equipped with nothing more.
How the fuck? Then that makes no sense. How do they fight if they're blind? Like, and the Colosseum's huge, right? So it's not like, what if they just turn around and they start fighting the wall?
Then a sealed helmet and a rusty sword were dumped out into the arena and forced to square off. It's like watching two blindfolded kids trying to whack at a piñata, except they're both potential piñatas. Now,
So they
while
were just
formal
saying-
gladiator duels were not to the death, of course some still died, but it was more common to die by bleeding out after the match had been called by the referee. Oh yeah, they had referees.
That's what I was
These
gonna
were
say, they have
often
fucking
retired
referees?
gladiators tasked with making sure that the
3, 2, 1. Right side ready. Ready. Left side ready. Ready. Fight. What the fuck? Can you imagine the guy from the UFC? Let's get ready to rumble.
rules of battle were being followed and stopping fights before final blows were dealt.
Two guys half naked, just fucking, like, bro, just fighting. Like, bro, what?
You see, gladiators were expensive investments, so their managers wanted them alive for as long as possible, lest they start all over leveling up another rookie from scratch. So with all that being said, professional gladiator battles were not performed for the sake of death, just for the thrill of the fight, and the potential of death. Ancient myths are tough for modern historians to interpret, as historical writers across time have their own biases. Depending on how they felt about a certain historical figure, they could cement their legacy in history as a smart fella or a fart smella. The prevailing myth that Roman Emperor Nero diddled his fiddle as Rome burned to the ground is one that should go up in smoke. It's commonly
Diddled
believed
his
that Nero,
fiddle,
having
okay.
descended into madness over the course of his reign, started the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD, a disastrous and destructive inferno that destroyed nearly 3/4 of the Roman capital. Accusations claim that Nero didn't really like the look of Rome and wanted to rebuild it in his own vision with a lavish and gaudy golden palace, so a conveniently timed fire would have been a great opportunity to do so. The fire is suspected to have started in a shopping district stockpiled with flammable goods. Once the fire started, it was nearly impossible to contain. Rome was a dense city, streets were narrow, housing structures were wooden, and the wind was a-blowin'. This set of conditions provided the perfect environment for the big ol' fire to really roar. The blaze lasted for 9 whole days, decimating 10 of Rome's 14 districts. But was Emperor Nero to blame? Not at all. According to Tacitus, one of the most influential Roman historians at the time, Nero was not near Rome when the fire started. He was actually several miles away in the
Where the fuck was he at? He's basically the president of Rome, and gang's not even there. Oh yeah, well, everything's on fire. I'm gonna sit here on my ass and do absolutely nothing. How does that sound? Like, what? Where was he at, bro? Bro was just fucking drinking a pina colada on the beach while the country he's supposed to be, or the empire he's supposed to be taking care of, is literally burning.
coastal town of Antium. But he rushed back home to Rome once he caught wind of the disaster.
Okay,
when
never
he did
mind.
get back, Nero actually funded relief efforts and opened up private gardens and other
Okay.
structures for shelter to those affected. Despite these efforts, Nero
That's my neck, but with the information I had at the time, you would understand why I would say why he wasn't there. But he was there. He's a great ruler.
still came under scrutiny from the nobles who hated him, claiming that he should have responded sooner and provided more assistance. Freaking Nero, dude. I bet my scorched ass cheeks he started that fire himself. Yeah, you're right. He probably did. Guys, he was literally miles away in another city. What did you do? And that's how rumors start. In actual fact, there is no historical evidence that Nero started the fire, and especially no evidence that he played the fiddle when Rome burned. Mostly because the fiddle wouldn't be invented for another 900 years. It's probable that the claim is part of...
People just be fucking lying, huh? Like, they're like, yeah, well, I heard he played the fiddle. The fiddle wasn't even around. That's like saying, oh yeah, I heard bro was playing Fortnite back in 2000. I was playing Fortnite when when what's the name happened? Like what the fuck? People just be lying.
Christian propaganda, as Nero famously blamed them for the fire, leading to their persecution. So who really got the last laugh? It was Nero. He burned a lot of Christians. It's possible that your middle school history textbooks may have toyed with the idea that ancient Aztecs, or even the greater Mexica people as a whole, saw the invading Spanish conquistadors as godlike figures. More specifically, history has suggested that the Aztec ruler Moctezuma, or Montezuma, however you want to pronounce it, believed that the arrival of the Spanish coincided with the prophesied return of Quetzalcoatl, the Mesoamerican feathered serpent god of creation. But we now know that it's all, as the Spanish say, a bunch of caca. It's certainly true that the native Mexican people were stunned and confused by the appearance of the foreign invaders with their fancy horses, gunpowder, and white skin, but there's no evidence explicitly stating that they were thought of as gods. Letters written by Hernan Cortés himself about his conquests never mention being mistaken for or being interpreted as a god in any way, shape, or form. And this is further supported by the writings of Spanish conquistador Bernal Diaz del Castillo, who chronicled Cortés's conquests in real time.
Like,
one passage...
What's his name? That famous painter. Or am I tripping? He looks like someone familiar, right? It could be Pennywise, but who does he look like? I noticed that face from somewhere. It's not the same face. It's not the same face, but similar.
Highlights a conversation between Cortés and Moctezuma in the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan. Conversation basically had Moctezuma being like, yeah, people around here think I'm a god, that I'm all about gold and silver and precious stones, but look, you see that? Flesh and blood, my dude. We're both the same. I know that you're just a bunch of foreigners and not some otherworldly divine beings. That would just be silly. To which Cortés replied, so where did this idea come from? Well, it actually started...
Took his shit smooth off. Oh my goodness. What? Bro. I'm trying to comprehend what's going on in the video, but also there's just so much going on.
Started to surface decades after the Aztecs were conquered. Publications of Spanish conquests alluded to the idea that Cortés and his men tried to pass their weapons off as magic and their horses off as intelligent, aggressive beasts. So it was mainly a sensationalized retelling of events, portraying the Mexica people as more feeble-minded, all while embellishing the Spanish image. As it turns out, the Aztec weren't bamboozled by some distrustful deity. The Spanish completely steamrolled the Aztec with the help of guns, alliances to Aztec rivals, and every European explorer's iconic weapon, disease. It was less, oh my god, and more, oh my god! The Great Depression was truly a financial disaster, not only for the US, but for the entire globe. Most of you out there might recall learning that the stock market crash of 1929 caused the Great Depression, but in reality, it was just the signal that shit had hit the financial fan. Nothing more than a devastating effect from a much more threatening underlying cause. If you're unaware, the world economy is a...
In school, they told me that the stock market crashing is what caused, like, the Great Depression. But it's saying it didn't. I don't know. It did really, like, because the stock market just really shows how good businesses are doing, right? But back then, especially back then, a lot of people were buying into businesses in the stock market because it was new, and they seen that, like, you can easily develop businesses by investing, and you can also make a lot of money by investing. So a lot of people had their money locked into that, you know what I mean? So I feel like when the stock market crashed, a lot of people lost their money. A lot of wealthy people lost their money. And not even just wealthy, but other people who did it to get a chance. You know what I mean? But I feel like a lot of the country lost their money. Their money.
Constant struggle for balance of supply and demand, with
Sorry
price
for pausing, but I feel like it did. It did give like a. It gave a boost to the Great Depression. Like it started it. It like gave it a head start, sort of. I don't know.
being the end result. Lots of demand and no supply, prices go up. Lots of supply but no buyers, prices go down. Sure, that's a bit oversimplified, but you get the idea. The Great Depression was a catastrophic chain of events stemming from US overproduction of goods.
Oh,
You see, in the early 1920s, the world had entered a time of peace at the end of World War I. This led to an industrial boom, not for war machines, but for consumer goods. Mass production was going wild, and factories were farting out new products like crazy. To sell these products, companies began aggressive advertising campaigns. The news, radio, magazines, and everything just screamed in your face to buy the latest and greatest doohickey. And the people did. But how could customers afford all of this lavish spending? Yep,
yeah,
the
that's what I was
establishment
gonna
of
say. A lot of people took out credit, right? They didn't use their money. It was like they could pay now. No, they can buy now, pay later type of thing with credit. And a lot of people took it out in credit, which meant people weren't getting their money, and people's credit was not. You know what I mean?
for credit. Cars, appliances, clothes, homes, all purchased on credit. But the United States was not the only beneficiary of a peacetime economy. European and Asian markets began producing their own goods, selling these products to the US for cheaper prices, which caught the eyes of consumers looking to save a few pennies here and there. The big American companies, seeing potential profits leaving their grubby hands, were pissed and lobbied Congress to protect their interests. In order to do so, the Fordney-McCumber Tariff of 1922 was passed. This raised American tariffs across the board, increasing the consumer cost of foreign goods as to thin out the competition and force Americans to buy American products.
Okay.
Europe and Asia promptly responded in kind, and soon a tariff war commenced. All this sounds a bit familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Now, in order to keep a super long story super short,
That's
here's
sort of
what
what's
happened
going on right now. Kinda.
next. Demand shrank as American companies and farms overproduced their goods. Too much stuff and no one to buy it means less sales. Less sales means less profit for these companies, and with less company profit, that means they're gonna start handing out some pink slips. With lots of people laid off, lots of people have less money to spend, so companies lose even more money, and if they lose enough of it, they go bankrupt. Now, when companies went bankrupt, at least back in the 1920s, the banks that supported them failed. And when the banks failed, people's money straight up vanished, thanks to the lack of FDIC insurance. Everyone loses their
Can you
shit.
just imagine that shit? Like you got like, say you got like 10 grand in the bank, and then just cause some company that you have nothing to do with loses all their money, all your shit's gone too, just cause of that. That's wild.
Rushes to withdraw money from whatever banks are still standing, but there's not enough physical cash to meet that demand. Now, all of a sudden, no one has money. So what happened to it all? The banks lent it out to all the rich people placing speculative bets on the stock market. Now, when there's a lot of market speculation, stock market prices get unreasonably high. Unreasonably high prices aren't very sexy, so no one else wants to buy them. Instead, they sell to take profits. But when these profits are taken, that stock price drops. When stock prices drop, any remaining shareholders lose potential profit, which is no bueno. So they panic sell whatever shares they have. And when there's enough seller momentum across the board, the entire stock market crashes.
So what happens basically is when it gets to its peak, it's worth a lot. So people sell it, and then a lot of people start getting scared that they're selling it, so they know that they're going to start losing out on money, so they start selling it, and then everyone else stops selling it, and then out of nowhere that shit's just worth nothing.
So banks have failed, blue-collar workers have lost their life savings overnight, millionaires have lost their fortunes, factories have folded, and farmers have hung up their tools. Not only did this cripple the United States, but the entirety of global trade. The United States could not meet critical export demands, and foreign economies selling raw materials such as sugar, rubber, and lumber lost their biggest customer, and thus most of their money, impacting their economies. The Great Depression was without doubt one of the worst economic disasters of the modern age. The American economy struggled until the United States entered World War II in 1941, where demand for production and labor picked right back up.
Yeah,
To put
actually,
it simply, the
I
1920
heard about that too. I heard that it's a conspiracy thing, but I heard that the president at the time purposely put us into World War II because he knew that it would help the country. But that's just a conspiracy I heard. I'm not saying it's true. It's a conspiracy though that the president at the time, I think it was Pearl Harbor, right? They say that he purposely did Pearl Harbor, like he didn't set it up, obviously, but he allowed it to happen. He knew what they were gonna do, and he allowed it to happen to get the U.S. like get the U.S. like running. You know what I mean? Uh, It's just a conspiracy. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying that's what I've heard before. It's a conspiracy though.
And stock market crash did not cause the Great Depression. It was the writing on the wall that the system was breaking. Afterward, the banking system was overhauled and the stock market heavily regulated to prevent history from repeating itself. And we'll see how that goes. Well, that's the end of this video. Did you learn something new?
Um, Kinda did something new. No, but yeah, that's what I've heard though. We all hear conspiracies and stuff, and that doesn't mean they're real or they're true. But you know what I mean. It's always cool to sit down, shut up, and listen to the conspiracies because sometimes they can be true. Not saying they are always true, but they can be, and that's just how it is. Yeah, but peace.